You know, initially I found the idea of official governmental social media accounts posting gaming memes to be a pinch cringe. However, as the policy continues to piss off all the right people for all the right reasons, namely that the right is now playing with the left wing's toys, I'm warming to it more and more. And so today we are going to have a look at a 9-minute video called Stop Staying Silent from the Second Wind YouTube channel. Now, Second Wind is by far the most, and I do mean by far the most famous, for being the new home of Ben Yahtzee Croshaw, who is of course famous for Zero Punctuation, which, and this is becoming a bit of a habit for the man, was also the only reason why anyone ever visited the Escapist, as Zero Punctuation was amazing. Granted, I haven't actually watched a video of Zero Punctuation or the new Fully Ramblematic in, like, 5+ years, so it's been a while, but I remember them being very, very good. However, now Second Wind has apparently decided to move on into the political side of things on YouTube, and as somebody who's been here for a while, I'm interested in seeing what they've got to say, particularly on the usage of meme magic on governmental social media. So, let's have a check out, shall we?
The Department of Homeland Security has been making social media posts using imagery from Halo, and to say it's a disgusting dehumanization of people would be an understatement. In the post on
Now, right off the bat, what I find so thoroughly amusing about this is that this is basically orcs are black people all over again, where the right was like, what do you mean orcs are black people? And like, no, you gotta understand, they're depicted very negatively as brutal barbarians. Okay, and now we're doing it again with the flood. What do you mean the flood is immigrants? A bit of a self-report there, as, well, the original actual intent of the flood, in all due likelihood, was to represent sin. Some form of inimicable evil that cannot be negotiated with, that cannot be dealt with, that cannot be reasoned with, that must be fought. And that is the only way to deal with it. But, okay, the flood is dehumanizing. Boy, that's got a lot of unfortunate connotations.
On Twitter, the DHS describes immigrants as a flood that needs to be destroyed.
Again, no, they literally didn't. You did that.
The Flood is a parasitic enemy featured in the Halo franchise that takes over host bodies and can only be eradicated completely by firing off a Halo ring, which wipes the galaxy clean of life.
Correct. They're evil, an inimicable evil.
Unfortunately, as of this writing, Microsoft has yet to take a stand against the government using its own IP in this way.
And I'm quite pleased about that, because I know they want to, but they themselves also understand that this is just not the time.
Marcus Leto, the co-creator of Halo, and Jamie Greisemer, who was one of the chief designers of the original Halo games, have though. Even though they most likely have different political stances based on what I can tell from their interactions online, they agree that this is wrong.
I did actually read a couple of these, so I take their feedback on this with a very large pinch of salt, as I, amongst other things, saw interviews saying that Halo had no themes whatsoever, that nothing in Halo was to be a representation of any group of people, any religions, any movements, etc., and this is very self-evidently wrong. The series is named Halo. Its primary protagonist is a literal messiah figure out there to save humanity, and his name is John 117, which just so happens to lead to a Bible quote talking about a man named John heralding the coming of Jesus. Yeah, this supposed lead designer doesn't appear to actually understand what on God's good earth he has designed, which also comes from the fact that he wasn't a lead designer. I think he was a lead art designer.
In the interview with Steven Totilo from GameFile, Leto said it was abhorrent, and it really makes me sick seeing Halo co-opted like this.
You know what? I agree. I've been kind of sick of seeing gaming being co-opted for quite some time now. Yeah, it happens to be a rather frequent occurrence these days, and yet not one that is complained about much from what I presume to be Second Wind's side of the internet.
Reisemer, who isn't exactly a fan of the left based on his post on Twitter, said, "Using Halo imagery in a call to destroy people because of their immigration status goes way too far and ought to offend every Halo fan."
And hey, if that was what they'd actually done, maybe I'd agree.
Regardless of political orientation, I personally find it despicable. The Flood are evil space zombie parasites and are not an allegory to any group of people.
And that again, not an allegory to any group of people, correct. But they are an allegory and that they are supposed to be sin. Yet again, coming back to the theme of what Halo is.
This isn't the first instance of ICE and DHS using a video game property to promote their propaganda either. Back in September, they used Pokemon, to which Nintendo told Polygon, "We are aware of a recent video posted by the Department of Homeland Security that includes imagery and language associated with our brand. Our company was not involved in the creation or distribution of this content, and permission was not granted for the use of our intellectual property."
And yet we are going to do absolutely nothing about it. You know why? Because if we were, well, you see what you're doing right now when you're putting that stuff in the background? That's the same thing. Now, you could argue that there should be some sort of differential between official entities and non-official entities, like YouTubers, etc., being allowed to do this, and, big corporations not being allowed to, and so on, but unless we are going to seriously rewrite vast quantities of copyright and fair use law, and hey, I'm not even necessarily against it, yeah, they've done nothing wrong.
What's truly telling about all this, though, is how the crowd that is always raging about how politics shouldn't be in games are cheering this on.
Yes, we are. Exactly, again, for this very reason. Listen, this is the primary reason why I actually quite enjoy the DHS NICE doing this, because this is your weapon. This is your tool of propaganda, to take your flag, to take your colors, and place it on everything, regardless of context, in order to claim it as your own. What the right is doing now is simply looking at your success and going, okay, we can do that too. And the only reason why you're upset about it, as you yourself did this and you so clearly have no moral objection to the tactic, is the fact that you're no longer the ones doing it. In essence, your complaint is, oh my god, you're beating me at the rules I created? I don't want to play this game anymore. Well, tough.
They seem to not understand, or not care about, the difference between a private company running a politically adjacent event to support a cause their employees, the people who made the game you're playing, believe in, and the government straight up co-opting a media property to push its own propaganda.
Wow. Yeah, that is a fine and convincing argument, if it weren't for the fucking fact. Listen. Left-wing progressivism has been actively working to co-opt institutions and governments for the last 20, 30 years. To the point where, again, your colors, your flags take primacy over that of the hosting nation. This, incidentally, also, by the way, was actually literally illegal, as according to the US flag code for official buildings, the US flag must have the place of primacy. This, of course, goes on a massive amount, both in the US, in the UK, in Europe, in Spain, France. Practically every Western nation has had some instance now of elevating the pride flag as but one symbol of leftism above those nations' own flags. Not to mention the usage in official institutions like schools and academia, even in military organizations. The left has been doing this for decades now, and is again only upset that the right has started doing the same. And, I point out, doing it better.
I don't think I need to explain to you why this is a slippery slope to go down, but having just covered how EA
Oh, we know. For once, this is the thing we taught you all about. As again, years and years ago, I remember countless videos being created. I've made a couple of them myself, simply saying, listen, This is a terrible idea, and eventually, when you lose power, your opposition is going to look at all of the weapons you've crafted and go, I remember when that was used against me. It hurt. I think I'm going to use it against you now. Indeed, it is a slippery slope, but as the video like this demonstrates, as the Charlie Kirk assassination and subsequent wave of right-wing cancel culture cancellations proves, the only way to get the left to value something like neutrality, like saying, no, the government probably shouldn't take a political stance on cultural issues like this, as again, culture is obviously what determines the politics, or even saying that companies should remain neutral, or that we shouldn't cancel people over internet opinions. The only way to get the left to say this is to apply those very self-same consequences to the left mercilessly, as it was the first thing that actually got prominent left-wingers like Hassan and Destiny to start talking about freedom of speech.
A is selling out to Saudi Arabia, and Jared Kushner, who is the son-in-law of President Trump, we're going down a dangerous path very quickly. The same people cheering this on will surely be left aghast when the government ends up trying to decide what games you can play, what games can be made, and who can make them.
You mean like the government already did in the primary areas of Europe, for example? We already have hate speech laws over here. You've basically got hate speech laws over in the US with laws against, what was it again? Aggravating situations, where basically if you say the wrong thing that pisses off certain groups of easily aggressive people, according to the US government, then you can be held responsible for pissing them off. We've already got that. We've already got ample regulations for what can and cannot be made, depending upon how offensive it is, or whether or not it is considered to be hate speech or some form of hate crime. This has already happened. You simply haven't noticed because it was your side doing it.
I mean, the government is already taxing you without representation because Congress has relinquished the power of the purse. So, what's to stop them from controlling the media you consume?
Hey, on that we agree, taxation is theft.
Normally, writing that might be seen as fear-mongering, but in this current environment...
No, that's pretty much what we've been saying for the last 15-odd years. Go ahead.
Where the government is pushing companies to take comedians they don't like off the air. Banning books from libraries, and going after the funding of blue states. Doesn't exactly...
Imagine that! Cancel culture, going after left-wing comedians, going after left-wing entertainment. Yet again, boy oh boy, if only there was some sort of recent precedents to show us exactly what happens when you do this. Some sort of inspiration, perhaps, for the right to ape. It would have been nice to see that.
Exactly seem far-fetched, considering that the vast majority of the games industry, as with any artistic industry, is more progressively aligned. It seems like a matter of when at this rate.
This too absolutely is bullshit, frankly. The idea of it being more progressively aligned has more to do with the areas in which it is located rather than the people who actually make the games. The old myth that conservatives are simply uncreative, there's very little evidence of it. Not to mention, the only reason anything ever stays art is because somewhere conservative decided to conserve it.
The future that these people envision is an industry where games are created by AI, and therefore made by an entity that they don't politically disagree with.
Okay. Now, for the record, by the way, I hate the current vision of AI games. Well, now, granted, it's technological limitations at the moment, but it randomly generates an area in front of you. I don't want to see that. I don't think you can craft a good narrative experience by doing that, unless you have one hell of a narrative AI, which theoretically possible, but I don't like the idea of it. And especially the gameplay footage, quote-unquote, that people are showing looks absolutely awful.
A market that isn't free and removes the games, studios, and people they personally dislike.
Also, no it doesn't. One, anyone can make their AI. In fact, I think PewDiePie is currently building a series of them in his garage. Two, doesn't politically disagree with you. Again, you can make the AI however you want. The AI doesn't even have a political organization, it's code.
An entity that they can completely control to make whatever this slop is.
Yeah, You know what? That does sound, again, eerily reminiscent of having something you can completely control, perhaps by threats of cancellation or legal consequences, for example, that will make a company kowtow to your demands, or perhaps threats of, I don't know, organizing workers within the company into unions? Who knows? Again, it's not like we've seen this happening before or anything. And yes,
The studio's off the hook here.
this looks like hot garbage. On that we agree.
Companies are investing billions of dollars into AI, and people like Elon Musk are claiming that they'll be able to replace game creators with AI-developed games. They're openly stating what kind of future they want.
In fact, not only will they be able to, they are going to be able to. We are absolutely going to see AI-made games. Now, whether or not they will be these cringely made, like, dynamically generated things, I fucking hope not. But AI-made games, absolutely. There is no reason why assets, soldiers, vehicles, textures, buildings, etc. cannot be created in AI. In fact, a fair few companies are already doing that right now, but they will still need some form of external direction by a director. But, well, yeah, people have spent the last decade or so learning how to code or make 3D models. You might want to look at some alternative uses for your skill set.
And putting the stepping stones into place to make it happen. But let's not let the companies and studios off the hook here. What's particularly galling to me is that companies like Microsoft have raised money off the back of progressive ideals for years now. Every year, they've been running events in support of various groups and events. Pride, Black Lives Matter, you name it. And now that the government has used Halo as a propaganda tool for ICE recruiting, which is promoted by an administration that directly goes against the ideas that Microsoft and its studios have supposedly stood for, they're silent. I'm not naive. I'm aware of the rainbow economy concept Darren has talked about in the backdrop, and how companies support progressive ideals when they're in for their own economic gain and performance.
Yes, that was virtually the entire reason why. See, the left was in absolute dominant control of culture, to the degree that is almost difficult to picture today. The left wing stated something and it was truth. It was reality. Men can be women, women can be men. Biracialism exists. You can be whatever you want. I have seen progressives unironically argue that you can identify as an attack helicopter, the once meme thing. They literally determined reality. Okay? That was the absolute cultural dominance of the left wing. And if you went against that narrative, regardless of whether or not you were an individual or a company, you could have your job taken away from you. We have a fairly recent example of that with the Hogwarts Legacy game, for example. There were countless cancellations of video game companies, of individuals, of creatives, of YouTubers, etc. over the years because the left determined everything. And so, what did the corporations do? They bent the knee because they didn't want to get cancelled. Now, however, the right is resurgent, and it has picked up all the tools the left have created and are wielding them with wild abandon at the moment. And so, a corporation like Microsoft will look at this and go, do I want to piss off the US government? No, of course not. They were only on your side so long as you could be exploited. And even then, not even to be exploited, the left wing failed utterly to make things popular, to create IPs, to build up under the things they demanded to be made. The right has near universally retained the ability to create successors via their purchases and their attention. The only reason why the companies were on the left side was out of fear. That is coming as a big backlash now, as again, I cannot overstate the cultural control the left had. In fact, let me give you a beautiful example of it, quite fitting for Second Win here in the ex-Escapist crew. So this was Game Developer Conference 2009. Could games get too politically correct? Asks this article, and concludes that nah, probably not. There's no way games could get too politically correct. That's not possible. And it's written by James Stephanie Sterling. Hold on. I seem to remember that name, although with a slightly different presentation back in the day. Suspicious. Well, what is James Stephanie Sterling doing today then? I just want you to listen, okay? Perk up your ears and listen.
You said Stephanie Sterling's son, and then my mind, like, as it filtered through to my brain, I heard Stephanie Sterling's son. And that's one of the things I was going to mention in the catch-up at the beginning, is that I am pregnant.
Like I said, I cannot overstate how much of simple reality the left bent and commanded at its highest ebb.
However, the people working at or under these companies have been loud about their support for things they believe in, and the silence right now is deafening.
Because most of them have gotten fired. The repeated waves of firings at entertainment companies have absolutely been rather targeted at specific groups of people who have quite simply failed to be profitable. We saw it initially at Netflix, then it moved on to Disney. Even Amazon now is having a hard look at its various creators, not to mention the general slaughter in the video games industry at large. With the collapse of various investment sources like ESG, etc., and various woke investing brands, there is no longer an infinite amount of free money streaming into these games companies, meaning that, as unpopular as it is, they must actually sell products again, and progressive games simply haven't been selling.
Whether it's fear of online pushback, Microsoft threatening to terminate jobs, whatever it is, it's troubling as fuck that there's not a visible and loud denunciation of the use of the Halo IP, or any IP, in this way. It's damning that people and companies are willing to raise money off the backs of the people who support them, but when their employees are targeted by mobs led by ambulance-chasing YouTubers, they're nowhere to be found.
Ambulance-chasing YouTubers? I think you said something about fear-mongering a little while ago, but details.
When the government uses their IPs to push a message of hate and division as the companies themselves promote unity, they're letting it go unchallenged. Microsoft and Nintendo are massive companies. If they wanted to push back on this, they would.
And they can't. Again, they chose to go along with this when you had the power. The power you had is now on the right. So, if companies acted a certain way under a similar set of circumstances, but on the other political side, how do you think they're going to act under those very self-same circumstances, but the other side is pushing in? It's not too difficult to predict, really.
Industry professionals give big speeches at award events that gain millions of views. Leaders like Phil Spencer give flowery interviews talking about how important inclusion and different perspectives are in the industry.
Yeah. In 2020, they tickled your balls because they feared you.
So, where's the collective action? Where's the pushback? Where are the courageous leaders of the industry speaking up to defend the ideals they supposedly so staunchly believe in? Because if you think Halo and Pokemon are the only games the government is going to use in this way, you're naive.
I mean, hell, if the worst the government is going to do is make a meme of it, that's a hell of a lot better than what you guys were doing.
In fact, they're not even hiding it. In an email response to independent games reporter Alyssa McConte,
Ah, yes. Alyssa McConte, the fight me, please lady, who incidentally also declined the offers to actually fight, but again, details, not like that's a new thing on the left. Moral cowardice, that is, as is currently also being called out by the Second Wind video.
the government openly states they're going to use any medium they can to get their messaging across, including more of your favorite IPs, and I'm going to assume they'll be doing so without permission from those IP holders. We will reach people where they are with content they can relate to and understand, whether that be Halo, Pokemon, Lord of the Rings, or any other medium. DHS remains laser focused on bringing awareness to the flood of crime that our criminal illegal aliens have inflicted on our country. We aren't slowing down.
Wow, imagine that. The government going to wherever people are to try to influence them. My God, yet again. If only there had been some sort of a warning point. If only there had been some sort of example we could see of this very thing in action that we might have pushed back against years and years ago. If only there had been warning flags waving brightly in classrooms all across countless nations. Oh well.
Is the industry going to just roll over for this too? How long
Yes.
before Microsoft starts putting ICE recruiting ads directly on your Xbox dashboard or in your games?
Probably a couple of years. I mean, again, we've already had this, so there's no reason why we can't have an ICE flag here. It simply depends upon how far the right wishes to push its momentum.
Again, there is a big difference between a video game studio choosing to put a pride flag in as a
Choosing. That word is doing a lot of heavy lifting here, as again, it was choosing out of fear. The same reason why it's choosing to not say anything now. As you yourself said, these are massive companies that could say something if they wanted, and indeed, they could. They choose not to, as they chose to put the pride colors on their IP back then.
cosmetic that you can freely ignore in their own video game, and the federal government coercing or putting pressure on a company to promote their propaganda for years.
And again, they haven't even done that yet. But, would I be against it? Yes. Would I laugh at it? Yeah.
The prevailing message has been to ignore the trolls. Don't respond to them, and they go away.
Yeah, because you never actually had any arguments, which is kind of why you're making this video right now, talking about why are they using our things against us? Yeah, ignoring the opposition will then, again, politics is the 2% arguing over the 98. Whilst you were locking yourselves into your dark corners, hoping for the other 1% to simply go away, we addressed the 98. And turns out, they were pretty damn agreeable.
But they didn't go away. They built their audiences, their influence, and now some of these people are in the highest positions of our government because of the lack of challenge and accountability. And the
correct. Well, the lack of ability to challenge, really.
billionaires that control all of our media are complicit in what's currently happening.
The billionaires controlling all of our media. Well, last time I checked, there was one on the right wing controlling media, and that was Twitter. So you've still got primacy in that regard, don't worry.
Look, I'd much rather spend a few minutes telling you how much I love Bollocks Pit.
But you just feel you've got to educate us on how immigrants are parasites. I understand. It's kind of what I've been doing as well, because if you want to change culture, you do actually have to try to speak to people, but you've got a long road ahead of you.
But the industry not taking collective action against this, the endless firings by greedy executives, and the constant targeting and harassment of people working in the industry is
The endless firing of people making unprofitable games, and the endless lambasting by the customers not being served by those same individuals.
beyond disappointing. Pushing back is uncomfortable. It puts a target on your back for people to attack your credibility, your name, your company, your income, and whatever other ways they can try to get to you.
Especially if your arguments are this solid.
But if you're not willing to stand up for your ideals, what's the point of standing up at all?
And hey, for once, again, well, for twice, we do actually agree.
The next time a powerful company wants to take a stand on something, we should remember this moment.
Yes, please. Please, the next time a company raises your flag for the umpteenth time, reject them. Don't buy their shit to an even greater degree. Please. I mean, the right wing is pretty dominant right now, but it could be more dominant.
And those that were happy to take your money, your time, and your support, but not willing to risk painting a target on their back when the target was already on yours.
Absolutely. Reject all of it. Burn it to the ground. Isolate yourself further. And that was the entire Unpacked episodes then. So, again, I will give credit where credit is due. At the very least, the individual here is demonstrating the courage of their convictions. They clearly haven't thought about all of this a whole lot, but that is a fairly common thing now, as a lot of progressives will be waking up in a world where their ability to, again, literally dictate reality, I am pregnant, is no longer in effect. They can't simply demand things anymore. They cannot look at a company and go, oh, shame on you, because there's a bigger bully on the other side of the table now. The stick that you have so vociferously utilized against all of these corporations for decades is now in the other hand. You're gonna have to come up with something better, some better arguments, and you are going to have to start addressing people. And whining that your toys have been taken away, and that the other child is smacking you over the head with them, it's not quite as good an argument as you think it is. Mostly, it's just funny, and will remain funny for quite some time longer, as I am still absolutely of the opinion that the right simply needs to continue to violently abuse the left on every single social media level for another, 2, 3, 4 years at the very least, as yet again, the only thing that has ever actually convinced the left to start speaking out in favor of neutrality is to be bashed brutally over the head with a vaguely Pikachu-shaped ice poster, over and over again. If it's working, why stop now? But hey, I'm happy to see the at least mild resumption of the dialectic here, so we'll see what happens in the future. So, second win. Welcome to the political sphere. You'll do middling here. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching. I do hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.